Now, there is only one story in town on the front pages this morning, and with us to review the newspapers is the editor-in-chief of National World Cities, Nancy Fielder, and the journalist and author, Yasmin Alibhai-Brown. Good morning to you both. Great to have you with us. Let's start with the front page of the Mail. Yasmin, you pulled this one out. I mean, like many of the front pages today, leading, of course, with the story of Gary Lineker. You know, this story was brewing all week, and then the night before Match of the Day, it sort of all exploded, didn't it?
Yes, and as you said, it was a kind of slow growing story, but it certainly completely hit the front pages today. And as ever, you know, the Mail has a very striking headline of a mutiny. I mean, I do find that a bit interesting, because what's happened is apparently Gary Lineker, who did this tweet in his private time as a private citizen, expressing his view that the language currently being used about the migrant situation kind of is not dissimilar to the language used in the 1930s in Germany, which is actually a proven fact. But what's interesting is that it's seen as a mutiny. His fellow presenters on Match of the Day have also joined him in solidarity. I think it's partly because they agree with what he said as much as his right to say it. So the Mail has that headline and clearly takes a line. And I just think it's extraordinary that impartiality now at the BBC has come to mean repeat and reinforce the government line on everything. That's what impartiality has come to mean.
Nancy, what are your thoughts? Let's look at the front page of the Mirror, shall we? The statement from the BBC yesterday, you know, said that they don't expect Gary Lineker to be an opinion-free zone, but he should keep well away from taking sides on party political issues. Your thoughts on all of this?
I think the problem is that they would have to get rid of a whole huge range of presenters and staff who work at the BBC, because people do have opinions, and we have seen controversies with people expressing opinions, well-known people expressing opinions and not being forced out of a job, which is effectively what's happening to Gary Lineker here. It's really powerful that in an era of strikes, his colleagues have all backed him up. And when the Mirror printed its front page, it was 40,000 people signing the petition to bring him back. It's now almost 105,000 people who signed that petition. I've just checked. They're very careful, though, not to agree with what he's saying in the petition. They're fighting for his right to be able to say it, and they're saying bring him back as soon as they can. And I think most people seem to agree with bringing him back, and that he should be able to express his opinion.
Yeah, and certainly, as things stand at the moment, it really feels very unclear as to whether we'll ever see Gary Lineker on Match of the Day again. Yasmin, the front page of The Guardian also leading on this today, saying as well that ministers put the BBC under pressure to act, and certainly, you know, after saying that they were going to hold talks with Gary Lineker this week, there wasn't any action for days, and it does seem that perhaps the BBC has then, you know, been triggered into acting after pressure from ministers. Certainly, that's what The Guardian is saying anyway.
Exactly, and it's not just The Guardian, quite a lot of people out there are saying it. And look, this isn't new. You know, all governments have always put pressure on the BBC to toe the line, but there is a much greater pressure on the corporation now, particularly as their chairman is a donor to the Tory party, to kind of, like I said, deny the BBC, which is our BBC. It doesn't belong to the government. It's ours. We pay the salaries, and we pay for the BBC through our license fee. Have to constantly, as I said, reinforce the government policies. And it's interesting. This doesn't happen to Alan Sugar. It never happened to Jeremy Clarkson when he was tweeting and saying the most obnoxious things during his time when he was a star, a BBC star. Striking workers, I remember he once said, should be shot. You know, all kinds of. Andrew Neil, again, a big beast journalist at the BBC who was also chairman of the right-wing Spectator. And so it does seem to me that after a very long period of Tory rule, there is a kind of autocratic streak which we haven't seen before. And it's bad for us and it's bad for democracy. What Gary Lineker said in his tweet can only be offensive to people who actually think that all of these boat people deserve punishment and contempt, which is what the general right-wing line is.
And Nancy, what's your reaction to that? Certainly, it seems quite interesting, doesn't it, that we're now seeing, a lot of this play out due to the role of social media now, because of course Gary Lineker didn't say this on air. He has a huge following on Twitter, nearly 9 million followers, and that perhaps, as he sees it, and many of his colleagues who are also former footballers may see it, is something that they find is their domain, not that of the BBC's.
Well, that's absolutely right. And yes, he's very famous for being match of the day, but people of my age remember when he actually played football, and he would anyway look at all the social followings of the footballers. He would, regardless of any connection with the BBC, have a massive social following. And footballers, we've seen, haven't we, footballers sometimes like to get political, and they have worked hard to get that status. We might not agree with how much they're paid or how much status they have, but they have earned that within their sporting field. And they have people who want to hear what they say. So why should he be any different? He was never going to say it on Match of the Day. There's never been a discussion about immigration on a football programme. Why would there be? So it does seem a little bit ridiculous. I just wonder, have you got the Daily Star front page? Because it is my absolute favourite.
We do. Let's show you all that.
So it compares it to VAR, which I think just sums it up beautifully. The Beebs gone to VAR, it's VAR. Everybody sees what's going on here. The action took place in front of our eyes, and yet the discussion is going on behind closed doors, and we'll just wait to be told what's happened. It seems to me that they're forcing Gary Lineker to go back down.
Certainly, the Daily Star maybe wins headline of the day on that. Nancy, Yasmin, thank you so much. We'll see you again in the next hour. Do stay with us. Still to come on Sky News Breakfast, we'll have all the latest on this row with Gary Lineker and the BBC, as that's triggered a Match of the Day boycott. More on that at the top of the hour.